Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are on the planet. Welcome to the Intel Showcase session on Wi-Fi 6E. My name is Bienvenue Apoponto Soglo, and I am the Government and Policy Director for Africa at Intel Corporation. The agenda of this showcase session is outlined on the next slide. So on this slide, you can see the first item on the agenda is setting the scene. That will be done by myself. And the second item on the agenda is the presentation on Wi-Fi 6E. That will be done by my colleague, Carlos Aguirre, Director of Marketing and Business Development, Wireless Solutions Group. And after that, the third item will be a video for the Wi-Fi 6E demo. Then after that, we will enter into the Q&A section, and then we'll have a wrap-up. I will be starting with the first item on the agenda. And as you can see on the next slide, Intel's purpose is to create world-changing technology that enriches the lives of every person on Earth. Inspired by Moore's Law, we continuously worked to advance the design and manufacturing of semiconductors to help address our customers' greatest challenges. We stand at the brink of several technology inflections: artificial intelligence, 5G network transformation, and the rise of the intelligent edge. That together will shape the future of technology. Silicon and software drive these inflections, and Intel is at the heart of it all. The fifth generation wireless technologies, referred to as 5G, represent more than just another step in the evolution of wireless. It is the convergence of wireless with computing and the cloud. 5G is a new paradigm, enabling everything to be smart because everything is connected. 5G addresses existing, emerging, and future users, delivering diverse services with usage scenarios such as, first one, enhanced mobile broadband, with immersive experiences and use cases such as virtual reality, augmented reality, and two user scenario, Internet of Things, or commonly called massive machine type communication, MMTC, with applications such as smart home, smart cities, sensors. And the third user scenario is the ultra reliable low latency communications, URLLC, with applications such as mission critical type communication, including autonomous driving or industrial IoT. At Intel, we believe that both 3GPP-based and IEEE-based technologies play an important role in 5G. 3GPP standards, for example, Release 15 and beyond for IMT 2020, and IEEE-based technologies, Wi-Fi 6 based on 802.11ax and beyond, and WiGig based on IEEE 802.11ad/AY will complement each other and will both be required to deliver wireless broadband to consumers and businesses worldwide, including in Africa. That is why the focus of this showcase session is on Wi-Fi 6E. I would like to call on stage Carlos Aguirre, Director of Marketing and Business Development, Wireless Solution Group, for his presentation on Wi-Fi 6E.
Thank you, Bienvenue. Hi, I'm Carlos Aguirre. I'm coming to you from the west coast of the United States, Portland, Oregon. And as mentioned, I work in the Wireless Solutions Group at Intel. Our team develops Wi-Fi products primarily for PCs, but we also have an active role within the standards bodies and the other major organizations within the industry. On the next slide, we list the agenda for my presentation. We're going to start off with a general update of the impact that Wi-Fi has on our lives. So we'll run through the evolution of the different Wi-Fi flavors over the last several years. We'll talk specifically about Wi-Fi 6, which we think was a monumental development in the evolution of Wi-Fi. And then the next phase, Wi-Fi 6E, which is going to be starting in the US early next year, and then in other regions as well. And then we'll share a short video that we show the performance benefits and latency benefits of the 6 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi 6E. So on the next slide, it's just a graphical depiction of how pervasive Wi-Fi is in our everyday lives. It's hard to imagine a day without Wi-Fi. From all the devices we have in our houses, I have a family of 5, and when we think about all the devices that we have connected, from TVs to phones to watches to computers, we have more than 20 devices connected to our network at any one time. And this is the case for lots of people in Europe, in the US, and other regions as well. There's a lot more IoT devices, computers, even in industry. So Wi-Fi is pervasive as a means for connection for devices. Then it also enables mobility in different locations, whether it's in the home or the airport while you're traveling, or at the hospital, or even at your local shopping mall. The impact to the economies is very significant when you look at the fact that it's used for shopping, e-commerce, used for education, and in our day-to-day work effort as well. And then the uses are very varied as well, from more niche uses like AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality, to gaming in the cloud or actual gaming. And then the number one usage for Wi-Fi is actually video. YouTube is very popular, and so is over-the-top movie subscriptions as well. All in general, it's hard to imagine a day without Wi-Fi. On the next slide, we'll talk about how in the recent times with lockdowns due to the pandemic, this reliance on Wi-Fi has grown even more. It's the fact that people are working from home, they're trying to go to school from home, and they're playing and enjoying media from home much more often than they used to. Some recent statistics show that in the earlier this year, that overall traffic for the internet had grown almost 40%, and that 80% of that traffic was due to video and gaming. One other notable spike in demand has been due to video conferencing. If you look at all the major platforms from WebEx to Teams to Zoom, all have measured a dramatic spike in usage over the last few months. And that's only going to continue moving forward. The reliance on Wi-Fi is huge. One thing to consider is that over 50% of the traffic that happens on the internet is projected by 2022 to be over Wi-Fi. And actually, the majority of cellular traffic, almost 60%, will be offloaded to Wi-Fi to help manage the user experience and help offload costs. So the key message is that from workers to students to families in general, the reliance on Wi-Fi is only going to increase. On the next slide, we'll talk about some of the evolution and the different types of Wi-Fi that's come about over the last several years. In 2007, I actually started my position in the Wi-Fi group in 2006 as a marketing engineer, and I worked on our first 802.11n product, which now is known as Wi-Fi 4. And that was significant because it actually created a major improvement in speed for the average user. Later in 2013, 11AC was introduced, and that's now known as Wi-Fi 5. And so we've been shipping the same Wi-Fi technology since 2013, and that also brought a dramatic improvement in speed. However, over time, the usage is to demand more. And so that's when in 2019, last year, we introduced our first 802.11ax solution, which is now known as Wi-Fi 6. And that was really an evolutionary step in the Wi-Fi technology. Prior to that, all Wi-Fi technology had been contention-based. So basically, if you picture an intersection without any stoplights or stop signs, and all the different cars and trucks trying to enter the intersection. They have to wait and listen to see if the intersection is clear. And so, as you can imagine, it's very inefficient. There's lots of collisions, lots of reattempts. So with Wi-Fi 6, it introduced managed network traffic, where the network actually controls who can go and who can come. And so in that same type of scenario, imagine now you have a giant robot police officer that's directing the traffic. It knows how many trucks, how many Ferraris, how many bicycles are waiting to enter the intersection, and it can tell each one of those devices when it should enter the intersection, and it's obviously much more efficient. In addition to that, it also helped improve speed. By the way, it was able to pack data within the same time frame. On the next slide, we talk about Wi-Fi 6 specifically, and this is how we positioned our Wi-Fi 6 solutions for PCs. With this managed traffic capability, you were able to see a dramatic increase in network capacity, almost 4x the amount of throughput compared to previous generations. In addition to that, as opposed to having every device on the network go one at a time, with the managed traffic and the ability to slice time and airtime, the network is now able to manage multiple devices at the same time, also helping to increase capacity, efficiency, and reduce latency. There's also new features which help block out interference from other networks, which also make the network much more efficient. There's a new standard in security, WPA3, that was introduced, which adds stronger encryption and simpler methods of authentication. And then our solution is unique. Standard Wi-Fi 6 is able to improve the speed performance of Wi-Fi by around 40%. However, our solutions was unique because we implemented 160 megahertz channels, which basically doubles the bandwidth of Wi-Fi 5. And so we were able to see almost 2.8, close to 3x performance improvement in the speeds of our Wi-Fi solutions for PCs. And all of these improvements in speeds and efficiency and capacity have helped dramatically reduce the latency, so that your experience on real-time applications such as gaming or video conferencing or real-time collaboration is actually improved dramatically. It's a much more responsive experience. On the next slide, we'll talk about Wi-Fi 6E. And basically, Wi-Fi 6E really brings the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 to fruition. Wi-Fi 6 is an incredible technology for Wi-Fi. However, it's burdened by the fact that it has to operate in the same spectrum as Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 4. And so there's inherent inefficiencies there because those devices don't see the traffic cop. And so as a result, users don't get to experience all the benefits of Wi-Fi 6. With the new 6 gig spectrum that's been approved for the United States and is being considered in other countries, we think that this is going to transform the experiences for end users. In the US, they're looking to open up the entire 6 gigahertz band, which is going to be huge. It's more than 2x the size of the current spectrum that we have in 5 gig for our Wi-Fi devices. And so this is going to lead to greater flexibility for networks, more channels. For example, in the US, because of channel reuse, most enterprises have to deploy their networks in 20 megahertz channel deployments. With Wi-Fi 6E and 6 gigahertz, there's so many channels that they'll be able to deploy 80 or even 160. So you're talking about a 6 to 12x improvement in performance for the industry, for the corporate environment, which is incredible. In addition to that, there's 7 160 megahertz channels. With Wi-Fi 6 and 5 gigahertz, there was only 2. And so gigabit Wi-Fi opportunities were relatively niche. With Wi-Fi 6E and the 6 gigahertz spectrum, because there's so many 160 channels, we're going to be able to see gigabit Wi-Fi much more frequently. And so it'll become more of a mainstream experience for users of 6E. So you'll have faster downloads and much more responsive real-time applications as well, because of the fact that only the new devices, the 6E devices, will be able to use this spectrum. So it won't be encumbered by older technology. And so that's huge. So that's going to help reduce latency and reduce interference, which will be a game changer for Wi-Fi users that adopt the 6 gig spectrum. And the next slide is a graphical depiction of how we like to think of the 6E and 6 gig spectrum. It's essentially a VIP highway for all of your fastest and newest devices. While all of the older Wi-Fi, legacy Wi-Fi technology will be, stuck to the 5 gig spectrum, all of the newer devices, which are the fastest and most efficient, will get to operate, unencumbered by these legacy devices, which will dramatically change your experiences. But not only that, the fact that all of the newer devices are on this new highway will actually free up resources in the older spectrum as well. So it's a win-win for all Wi-Fi generations. On the next slide, we'll talk about our vision for the impact of 6E and 6 gigahertz. And I'll start this slide at the bottom. At a very baseline level, 6E and 6 gigahertz will improve all of our everyday Wi-Fi usages. It'll make them faster, more responsive, from just sharing files, file transferring, to doing video conferencing, and your IoT scenarios as well. Not only that, because of the freedom, the improved speed and lower latency, some of the new use cases which are challenging in 5 gigahertz are going to become more mainstream. And this has to do with virtual reality, augmented reality, telemedicine, very high resolution video streaming, such as 8K, and then in the industrial space, like machine-to-machine connections in industrial IoT. The last point is, because of these new capabilities, speeds, and lower latencies, it'll help spawn new innovation and use cases that involve multiple bands simultaneously, such as simultaneously docking for consumer and corporate, mission-critical quality of service, where your super important data is reserved for the reliable 6 gigahertz band, whereas your less critical traffic can be relegated to the legacy 5 gigahertz band. All of these new usages are very exciting, and we look forward to the introduction of Wi-Fi 6E in the United States and also in Europe and other regions throughout the world. So in the next slide, we're going to introduce the demo that we prepared. And so this is a demo that we put together with our partners at Broadcom, their client group that works on the Wi-Fi for primarily cellular phones. They also have a 6E product, and we recently did a demonstration for the FCC in March, where we showed them the benefits of having a free spectrum from a latency standpoint, as opposed to a crowded spectrum for real-time applications like video streaming, and also the speed benefits that you can see from the 160 channels that enable gigabit Wi-Fi readily at the user's experience. So with that, I'd like to introduce my boss, Eric McLaughlin. He's our Vice President of the Client Computing Group, and he's the General Manager of our Wireless Solution Group, and he's going to be leading the video. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric McLaughlin with Intel Corporation. I'm a VP in the Client Computing Group, and I'm also the General Manager of the Wireless Solutions Group. One of the things that my group does, besides Wi-Fi, we also do Bluetooth and cellular connections for PCs. Across Intel and across my team, we also work broadly in the industry, in industry forums like the Wi-Fi Alliance, IEEE, Wireless Broadband Alliance, as well as 3GPP. And we have great relationships throughout the industry, and as we work together on co-engineering and bringing new things like Wi-Fi 6E to market. So today we're going to show you 2 quick demos. These demos include a Wi-Fi 6E PC from Intel and our client group. They also contain a reference platform, the VLP reference platform for phones, from our friends at Broadcom Client Connectivity Group. We're excited to work with them on this one. The first demo is going to be the live video stream that's going to show the latency benefits of Wi-Fi 6E. And for that, we're going to show you a live video stream. We're going to show it in low, medium, and high congestion type environments, which means fewer clients to more clients. And then we're going to show the benefits and do the same scenarios with Wi-Fi 6E. Now we're ready to show you the second demo. Just so you know, we left all the other stuff going from the previous demo to create a real world environment where there's a lot of things happening. We're going to show you the throughput of the 6 gigahertz enabled solution, and it will stay at or above a gigabit. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, thank you to our friends at Broadcom for helping us out with these great demos. As you saw, Wi-Fi 6E brings lower latency and a much more robust and capable connection along with gigabit speeds, even in a highly used network. So as you're going out to buy things towards the end of this year and early next, make sure you look for 6E so that you're able to take advantage of all the benefits of 6 gigahertz spectrum. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Carlos, and then for the demo. Questions are coming in. And so before I go to the questions in the chat, I first have one question. You know, we say Wi-Fi 6 and all the great things it can do, different type of application use cases for enterprises, for end users, etc. When will the devices become available?
So for Wi-Fi 6, we launched at early 2019, and we're on track to ship almost 80 million units through the end of the year across all the different 8th gen, 9th gen, 10th gen, and even our recent 11th gen ships with Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6E, that's going. Our solutions for PCs are going to launch early next year in the first quarter. But you should start to see routers and phones maybe in Q4, the holiday timeframe, and then in the enterprise probably closer to the middle of next year.
Great, thank you. I'll read the first question on the chat. That's from Mariam. Hello, Intel. Can you please eventually speak to the vendors that in 2019 and 2021 are carrying Wi-Fi 6 or are planning on carrying this technology from Intel? My understanding, her understanding, is that Intel does not offer such technology directly to the end user or end users.
That's right. Yeah. So Intel, we provide the solutions for the
some of our ecosystem partners, our industry partners in making devices available.
Yeah. So like I said, our group is focused on the PC. And so we work with all of the major multinational PC brands, your Dell, Lenovo, HP, to Acer, Asus. And then also there are regional manufacturers that also
great. The second question on the wall here is all very interesting, but what does this mean for Africa? What is realistic time frame for 6E devices to come online in Africa?
Is that for me? I'm not familiar with the regulatory status in Africa as far as opening up the spectrum. Yeah. There's lots of countries that are evaluating.
Yes, I will complement actually this one because I think this is a very, very good question. And I can see on your slide when you were presenting, Wi-Fi 6E, which is the Wi-Fi 6 used in the 6 gigahertz band. You say this depends on the regulatory conditions, right, in the different countries or the different regions. And actually for Africa, we have been advocating, say, look, when we look at the 6 gigahertz band, from 5925 megahertz to 7125 megahertz, the lower part of that band, 5925 to 6425, we believe that should be made available immediately. And so there should be some regulatory movement on the African continent to create the enabling environment for the Wi-Fi 6E devices to be used on the continent. And so, as you said that, towards the end of this year, some of the routers, etc., will already become available. And at the beginning of next year, laptop enables or capable Wi-Fi 6E will be there. And so this will depend on the regulatory environment on the continent. And we do encourage regulators in the region to, work towards enabling environment for the use of Wi-Fi 6. We do understand, in addition to that, that there's another agenda item that is there, but that is looking at the upper part, and studies are ongoing within the ITUR working party 5D. The next question on the wall is what will introduction of Wi-Fi into 6 gigahertz band mean for incumbents in the bands? How can interference be avoided?
Yeah, so depending on the region, there are different incumbents in the band. That's kind of the nice part of 6 gig as well, is that a lot of that spectrum can't be auctioned off for licensed. And so one of the ways that they manage that situation is the fact that the 6 gigahertz band doesn't propagate as much through walls and buildings. And so there's a term called LPI, which is low power indoor. And so PCs and other devices that use low power indoor are able to use the entire spectrum. In the US specifically, and in Europe, some of the spectrum is used by satellite operators, and also for microwave transmission, point to point. Your news cameras that ship video back to headquarters. Those guys definitely will need to be supported from interference, and so there's a scheme called automatic frequency control. And so that will be documented, and devices that work outdoors will have to, not operate at certain times depending on the sensing of the environment and if there's already traffic in that spectrum. And so AFC and LPI are the two mechanisms right now that are planned to avoid interference with incumbents.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And one thing I would like to add to that, in the direction of your answer, is that there have been extensive studies in the US, right? As you said, that they open up the entire 1.2 gigahertz amount of a spectrum. And recently, actually in the UK, Ofcom in July 2020 also decided to make the lower part of the 6 gigahertz, 5925 to 6425 megahertz, available for Wi-Fi and other wireline devices, because they have done studies and they believe that they can enable indoor and very low power indoor or outdoor use. And so encourage, again, African administrations and regulators to immediately open up the lower part of the 6 gigahertz band. That will bring a lot of benefit to consumers on the continent. Let's move to see the next question on the chat. I think, okay. The next one is from Oko Ibiam. The question is it possible to upgrade the Wi-Fi device on my PC to 6E during maintenance?
So the challenge is because it's new spectrum, new antennas are required to be able to be tuned to that spectrum. So at a basic level, you might be able to retroactive DIY, put in a new card, but we don't recommend that. We recommend to get the full experience of the full band. You should get a PC that has the antennas that support those frequencies.
Okay, great. A follow-up question from Mariam. She's saying that her question is actually to understand which vendors. For example, that would be using Wi-Fi 6E on the laptops, on the routers, and other type of devices.
Yeah, so I can't really disclose our customers' launch plans for next year since it's not public. But you can be safe to assume that we're working with all of the top 5 major PC vendors that will introduce solutions next year. And then on the router side, we don't specifically provide products for the router vendors. Some of our partners in the industry, like Qualcomm and Broadcom, do. I know that we have engaged with them on early testing. So expect to see those from the major router vendors. I don't want to mention any names since I don't know their specific plans.
Okay, so please post your question if you have additional questions. In the meantime, another question from myself, just to see, like in some cases on the continent, you have mobile broadband or IMT that is used. Let's say we say 5G is coming, right? And as Intel, we say 5G IMT 2020, and then Wi-Fi 6E and beyond will complement each other because of the need for offload, right? Because with 5G, the amount of offload will increase, and we're looking at by 2023 up to 71%, right, of offload. So can you give your take on how the use of Wi-Fi 6 could actually help improve not only the user experience but provide more efficiencies, etc., for enterprises and end users on the continent?
Yeah, so at Intel, we always view 5G and Wi-Fi 6 and 6E as complementary technologies because of the offload capability, because excuse me, they share a lot of the similar technologies, such as the available OFDMA, which is frequency division capabilities, and time splicing. Wi-Fi 6 and 6E will actually deliver on the promises of low latency and high performance that you would see in the cellular space in the indoor space for cellular. And so it's not only lower cost, there's no subscription charges for Wi-Fi. It's free once it's set up. And so it's much lower cost for data, but it also relieves the burden on the cellular network, which needs to deliver to those expectations, performance levels for the end user, so it can offload the data to Wi-Fi in order to free up resources in the cellular network.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Carlos. Let's see if there's any other question on the chat. I see none at the moment. So continue a bit in terms of the adoption of Wi-Fi 6E in other jurisdictions, right? Let's say, for example, in Europe, work already advanced, right, in terms of the studies, etc., for the use of the lower part of the 6 gigahertz. So what are the other jurisdictions? Which other countries are there regulatory movements in terms of either enabling the whole 6 gigahertz band or enabling part of the 6 gigahertz band?
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I know that the EU and the UK have made announcements about the lower part of the band. I think every country is going to have nuances on who the incumbents are. I think in Europe there's an issue with train management, which is different than the US. I know that in South Korea they've announced or made statements that they're planning to open up the entire 1200 megahertz for 6 gig. And then there's other countries that are evaluating, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Australia, India. A lot of countries are evaluating when and how much 6 gigahertz spectrum they want to open. Right now, one of the outliers is China. They're planning to use the 6 gigahertz spectrum, they've said, for licensed wireless. However, that direction might change if the rest of the major countries decide to open up this spectrum for unlicensed. They might, decide to do something similar to, preserve that harmonization across all the different countries around the world.
Thank you. Great, Carlos. One question on the private chat, that is from Bara, which is, are smartphones compatible with Wi-Fi 6E?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. One of the things I forgot to mention, that one of the major benefits of Wi-Fi 6E is that it's completely backwards compatible. So even if you buy a new 6E product in your country or you don't have the device, it'll work in 5 gigahertz and 2.4, just like Wi-Fi 6 did. And so it's purely an investment protection for the future benefits that you'll see once 6 gigahertz is available. So currently, most of the major smartphones support Wi-Fi 6. We know that our partners, Qualcomm and Broadcom, have solutions for smartphones. And so we think that you probably will see some of the major smartphones come out in the end of 2020 and early 2021 from the major vendors, such as, I don't want to mention names again because I can't disclose plans.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carlos. I think that was the last question on the chat. We're getting closer to the time where the session will be closing. Any closing remark from your side, Carlos?
The only thing I'd like to say is from Intel and my peers in the industry, we are super excited about 6 gigahertz and 6E. It's the most significant development in Wi-Fi in almost 20 years. It's a game changer. It's not only going to make the experiences of users improve near term with Wi-Fi 6E, but it's essential for beyond that, the 5 years after that with Wi-Fi 7. The advances are going to hinge upon the availability of this new spectrum to deliver even better performance and even lower latency in this new spectrum.
Thank you very much, Carlos. From my side, your presentation actually shed light on the different use cases and what happened in the US with 1,200 megahertz of spectrum being made available. We also talk about the study and the work ongoing in Europe that is looking at making the lower part of the 6 gigahertz band available. In addition to that, we also talk about other jurisdictions. Let's say in Korea, for example, in Brazil, etc., that are looking at either making the whole part of the 6 gigahertz band available or part of it. And so from the question on the chat where we see, okay, the devices are going to become available towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. And so when will Africa actually benefit from Wi-Fi 6? From my side, my advice would be for African regulators or administration to embark on regulatory work in order to immediately open up the lower part of the 6 gigahertz band, that is the 5925 to 6425 megahertz band. As we have seen, there have been extensive studies, right, that actually prove that Wi-Fi 6E can work in the whole part of the 6 gigahertz band. But in Africa, given the fact that we understand there is an agenda item that is looking at the upper part of the band, we don't want to anticipate the studies, but we believe that opening up the lower part of the 6 gigahertz will actually bring a lot of benefit and actually, provide more opportunities for enterprises, for end users on the continent. And so I would like to thank all the participants to this demo section on Wi-Fi 6E. And please, if you have any question that you may have and you did not have the opportunity to ask, please reach out to us. I'll post my email on the chat or via the organizers. Reach out to us, and if you need any technical additional information, please do not hesitate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.